I've been staring at this blank screen for hours, fingers trembling over the keyboard. The weight of everything we've endured, homelessness, death, family toxicity, has been crushing my chest for years. Sometimes I wake up gasping, convinced I'm still sleeping in our car, or worse, watching my friend's life drain away on cold concrete. But today, I'm finally breaking my silence. I need to release these words like poison from a wound that refuses to heal. I never imagined that at 21, I would already have experienced homelessness. Growing up, I had dreams: finish school, build a career as a CNA, create a stable home with the man I love. Simple things that seemed so attainable, so fundamental to a decent life. I wasn't asking for wealth or fame or extraordinary success. Just stability. Just safety. Just the chance to wake up each day without wondering where I would sleep that night. My fiancé and I met when I was 19, him 21. Both of us starry-eyed and determined to build something better than what we'd come from. I remember our first date so vividly, the way he listened, truly listened, when I talked about my passion for healthcare and helping others. How he shared his own dreams in that hesitant way of someone who's been told too many times that his aspirations don't matter. We recognized something in each other immediately: fellow survivors, fellow dreamers, fellow fighters. He rarely spoke about his family dynamics, but I caught glimpses. The way he tensed when his phone rang showing his mother's number. How he changed the subject when childhood memories came up. The nightmares that sometimes woke him gasping for air in the darkness of our bedroom. I'd hold him then, feeling the rapid hammering of his heart against his ribs, watching as he struggled to remember where he was, that he was safe, that he was loved. Piece by piece, I assembled the puzzle of his childhood. His home had been a battlefield of emotional manipulation, guilt trips, and perpetual disappointment. Every achievement diminished, every mistake magnified. His parents were masters at blame shifting, never accepting responsibility for the chaos they created. "You make me act this way," his mother would tell him. "If you weren't so difficult." His father, emotionally absent, would retreat rather than defend his son. The stories he eventually shared haunted me. Being locked outside in winter as punishment for a minor infraction. Having his belongings thrown away because his room wasn't clean enough. Being told repeatedly that he was the reason for his mother's unhappiness, her failed dreams, her dissatisfaction with life. The systematic destruction of a child's sense of worth, executed with precision over years. When he turned 18, he left, though his mother still insists she kicked him out, a narrative she clings to that gives her the upper hand in their fractured relationship. "I had to be the tough parent," she tells relatives, painting herself as the disciplinarian who did what was necessary. The reality, that her son was desperate to escape psychological warfare, doesn't fit her carefully curated self-image. We moved in together almost immediately. It wasn't ideal timing, but we were young and in love, and certain we could overcome anything together. Our first apartment was a studio with peeling linoleum floors and a bathroom sink that never fully drained. But it was ours. I remember the night we moved in, sitting on our secondhand futon, eating takeout pizza, laughing at how the single window faced a brick wall. It didn't matter. We had keys. We had an address. We had escaped. For a while, it worked beautifully. I was building my career as a CNA, working with elderly patients who often reminded me of the grandmother I'd lost to cancer years earlier. He found stable work at a warehouse, coming home tired but proud of the paycheck that represented his independence. Our tiny apartment became our sanctuary. The first place either of us had lived where screaming wasn't the background music, where tension didn't hang in the air like toxic smoke. We built small rituals that anchored us. Sunday morning coffee on our narrow balcony. Movie nights with blanket forts like the childhood neither of us fully had. Plans for the future sketched out on notepads. Maybe school for him, advancement to nurse for me, eventually a small house with a yard where we could plant things and watch them grow. Then the rent increases began. A slow-motion avalanche that would eventually bury us. First 10%. A notice slipped under our door with corporate letterhead, explaining market adjustments in impersonal terminology. Then another 15% 6 months later, this time with flowery language about community enhancements that never materialized. We stretched ourselves thin, picking up extra shifts until we were both working 60 hours a week, cutting every possible expense. I sold my car and took the bus to work, adding 3 hours of commuting to already exhausting days. We ate ramen for weeks, adding frozen vegetables when we could afford them. I started donating plasma twice a week, ignoring the bruises that bloomed in the crooks of my arms. But eventually, mathematics won. Our income simply couldn't match the spiraling housing costs. The final eviction notice arrived on a Tuesday. I remember staring at it, the black type blurring through my tears, wondering how we could have worked so hard and still failed so completely. The first night in our car, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking this was just temporary, just a blip, just a story we'd tell someday about our rough patch before success. I had no idea we were entering a 2-year nightmare. Homelessness strips you in ways I cannot fully articulate. It's not just the physical discomfort, though sleeping upright in a car seat for months does irreparable damage to your body. It's not just the constant fear, though never feeling safe, always being vulnerable, changes your neurochemistry in permanent ways. It's the complete erasure of your humanity in others' eyes. The way people look through you. The assumption that you must have done something to deserve this fate. During those 2 years, we cycled through car living, couch surfing, when friends could take us, and occasional respites in motels when we could scrape together enough cash. My fiancé worked whatever jobs he could find. I continued my CNA work, though keeping clean uniforms and maintaining professional appearances became increasingly difficult. We showered at gyms, brushed our teeth in public restrooms, and changed clothes in fast food bathrooms. Then came the night that haunts me still. We were parked in what we thought was a safe area, huddled together for warmth, because running the car heater all night would drain too much gas. A friend who had also fallen on hard times was meeting us to share some food. The three of us were standing beside our car when it happened, so fast, so senseless. An argument nearby that had nothing to do with us. Gunshots. Our friend pushing us down, taking a bullet meant for who knows who. The warmth of his blood on my hands as we tried desperately to stop the bleeding. The light fading from his eyes before the ambulance ever arrived. I still hear the sirens in my dreams. Still feel the stickiness of blood between my fingers when I wake gasping at 3 a.m. After that, something broke in both of us. PSD wrapped itself around our lives like poison ivy, constricting, irritating, impossible to simply brush away. Loud noises would send me in panic attacks. My fiancé developed insomnia so severe he sometimes went 3 days without sleeping. We were shells of ourselves, drifting through a world that felt increasingly hostile and uncaring. It was around this time that my fiancé's grandmother's health began deteriorating. As a CNA, I recognized the signs from our occasional visits. The confusion that wasn't just normal aging forgetfulness, the significant weight loss that hollowed her cheeks and left her clothes hanging from her frame, the declining mobility that made her movements hesitant and unsure. I spotted bed sores beginning to form on her heels, medication bottles with contradicting instructions, signs of dehydration in her dry lips and skin. The healthcare worker in me was concerned. The human in me was heartbroken. This woman had always been kind to us, slipping my fiancé extra food during childhood when things were lean, defending him sometimes, though never quite firmly enough, against his mother's tirades. She had welcomed me without judgment when we first started dating, had admired my CNA pin with genuine interest, had asked me questions about my work that made me feel valued. Now she was fading before our eyes, her dignity eroding with her health. During one visit, after helping her to the bathroom when no one else noticed her struggling to stand, I tentatively suggested that perhaps we could help. The words came hesitantly. We were in no position to offer assistance, barely keeping ourselves afloat. But watching her deteriorate while living in an increasingly unsafe environment felt wrong when I had the training to help. The family property has that small trailer that isn't being used, I said carefully, aware of how the suggestion might be perceived. We could live there. I could help care for your grandmother since I'm trained for this. You could save on hiring outside help. And we'd have shelter again. His mother seemed reluctant but agreed. Looking back, I wonder if she thought we'd fail, if she was setting us up to prove we couldn't handle responsibility. But we were desperate for stability, for a roof, for a chance to breathe and heal. We accepted immediately. The property itself was beautiful, 28 acres of land with potential for peace and recovery. But the reality inside the main house was shocking. Black mold crept up nearly every wall. The pantry contained food so rotted it had liquefied in its containers. There was no functioning stove. The bathroom was in such disrepair it was nearly unusable. Years of neglect had turned what could have been a lovely family home into a health hazard. Our trailer wasn't much better. Water damage, electrical issues, a door that wouldn't properly lock. But it was ours, and it wasn't a car. And for the first time in 2 years, we had an address. We could receive mail. We could apply for jobs without lying about where we lived. We could sleep horizontally on an actual mattress. The gratitude I felt was immeasurable. Despite everything, I was determined to make this work, to prove ourselves, to build something sustainable from the wreckage of our lives. From the moment we arrived, we threw ourselves into helping. I hiked up the steep hill to the main house every morning despite my health issues, a hip replacement from a sports accident and complications from open heart surgery I'd had years earlier. Each step would send pain shooting through my hip, but I'd grit my teeth and keep going. Grandma needed help, and I was a CNA. This was what I was trained to do. Every day, I'd sweep and mop the floors, wash dishes piled high in the sink, clean bathrooms, feed the animals, and tend to Grandma's needs. Sometimes, I'd find her sitting in her own waste because no one had helped her to the bathroom. I'd clean her gently, speaking softly, preserving her dignity as best I could. I'd check her medications, make sure she was eating, monitor her cognitive state. My fiancé worked full-time off the property, but devoted his evenings and weekends to tackling the endless maintenance issues. He hauled away truckloads of garbage, treated mold-infested walls, fixed plumbing problems, and worked on clearing the overgrown property. Neither of us complained. After homelessness, even back-breaking labor felt like a gift if it meant having a place to call home. His mother, meanwhile, rarely left her bedroom. She'd emerge occasionally to criticize our efforts or point out tasks we'd missed, but never to help. I tried to understand. Perhaps she was overwhelmed, depressed, burnt out from caring for her mother alone before we arrived. I made excuses for her behavior, encouraging my fiancé to extend grace to the woman who had caused him so much pain in childhood. We were city kids learning country living on the fly. The generator maintenance, the well water system, the septic considerations. It was all new territory. We made mistakes. We asked questions. We tried to learn quickly. But each error became ammunition for his mother, evidence of our supposed incompetence or ingratitude. 3 weeks into our stay, I was thawing a turkey for dinner. I'd placed it in the refrigerator, but with multiple people accessing the fridge throughout the day, someone left the door ajar. The family cat got in and damaged part of the raw turkey. When I discovered this, I immediately knew we couldn't use the meat. His grandmother has lupus, an autoimmune disease that makes foodborne illness potentially deadly. My fiancé has a compromised immune system as well. As a healthcare worker, I know that cutting around contaminated parts of raw poultry isn't safe. Bacteria spreads invisibly throughout the meat. I expressed these concerns, but my mother-in-law insisted we could still use it. Rather than argue, my fiancé quietly disposed of the turkey when she wasn't looking. It seemed the simplest solution to avoid conflict while protecting everyone's health. The explosion when she discovered what we'd done was nuclear. She stormed down to our trailer, face contorted with rage. She screamed that we were wasteful, ungrateful, disrespectful. When my fiancé admitted he had thrown the turkey away, her anger didn't redirect. Instead, it intensified toward me, as if I had manipulated him into doing it. The venom in her voice as she called us selfish made my body flash back to moments of danger during our homelessness. I froze, heart racing, unable to speak. 2 days later, she appeared at our door with a half-hearted apology and a request for patience. "I'm going through a lot," she said. I nodded, accepting her words while something inside me whispered that the apology was merely tactical, a way to maintain her position of power by appearing reasonable. This morning, my fiancé's car wouldn't start. He needed to get to work, so he asked if he could borrow his mother's car, a vehicle she doesn't drive due to anxiety issues. It sits unused in the driveway most days. She refused immediately. Then, as if seeking justification for her refusal, she brought up damage to our own car, damage caused by a UPS truck months ago that had nothing to do with the current situation. When we didn't take the bait and argue, she shifted tactics, suddenly claiming we weren't doing enough around the house and property. The accusation hit like a physical blow, stealing my breath for a moment. Every muscle in my body ached from the work I'd been doing. My hip throbbed constantly, the surgical site never fully healed from rushing back to work too soon after my replacement. My hands were raw from cleaning chemicals, cracked and bleeding at the knuckles, despite the cheap lotion I applied religiously. My fiancé had been coming home with sunburn across his neck and shoulders, scratches from clearing brambles etched into his forearms like angry red tallies marking his contributions. His back pain had flared again from hauling rotted furniture to the dumpster, but he took ibuprofen and kept working without complaint. We had been pouring every ounce of our remaining energy into making this place livable, into caring for his grandmother, into showing gratitude through action rather than words. I thought about the black mold we'd scrubbed from the bathroom ceiling, wearing masks we bought with our own money. I thought about the rotten food I'd gagged while removing from the pantry, some containers so old the contents were unidentifiable sludge. I thought about holding his grandmother's trembling hand while helping her bathe, preserving her dignity when her own daughter couldn't be bothered to check if she needed clean clothes. I thought about the nights we collapsed into bed too exhausted to even talk, our bodies aching, our minds numb, but still somehow feeling we hadn't done enough. Then came the words that finally broke through my carefully constructed wall of patience. You two need to grow the veggie up. The sheer injustice of it struck me like a slap. Grow up. We had grown up too fast, too brutally. We had survived things that would have broken many people twice our age. We'd held each other through nightmares and panic attacks. We had lived in a car and still showed up to work clean and professional. We had watched a friend die and still found the capacity to care for others. We had faced homelessness and hunger and violence and emerged still capable of kindness, of hope, of love. Something in me snapped. 2 years of homelessness. Watching our friend die. The daily struggle with PTSD. The physical pain. The endless labor. The constant criticism. The emotional minefields. All of it came rushing to the surface. You asked for patience just days ago, I said, my voice surprisingly steady despite the earthquake happening inside me. We've been here 3 weeks. You've been here a year. Just give us some grace. If you need something specific, just ask us. We're not mind readers. Her response left me speechless. I want you to see into the future. Not I need help with X task. Not I'm worried about Y situation. But an impossible, irrational demand that we somehow develop psychic abilities to anticipate her unexpressed needs and desires. In that moment, I saw with perfect clarity what I'd been trying not to see. This situation was never about helping Grandma or providing us stable housing. It was about control, about having people to blame, about creating chaos and then positioning herself as the victim of that chaos. I'm writing this from our trailer, where I've retreated to process everything. My hands are still shaking. My chest feels tight. I keep questioning myself. Am I the villain in this story? Have I misread everything? Am I being ungrateful? Then I look around at our tiny space that we've made our own. The second-hand furniture we've carefully arranged. The photos of us from happier times that we've finally been able to display, rather than keep packed away in the car. The small herb garden I've started outside our door, my tiny act of hope, of believing we might stay somewhere long enough for seeds to grow. I think about the progress we've made on the main house, the mold we've treated, the rotting food we've cleared away, the repairs my fiancé has completed. I think about Grandma's improved condition since we arrived, how she's eating better, seeming more alert, even smiling sometimes when I come to help her with her morning routine. We have done good here. We have contributed. We have shown up every day despite our own traumas and health challenges. We have extended grace upon grace to a woman who seems incapable of reciprocating. I understand that his mother is struggling too. Perhaps losing her independence by moving back to the family property felt like failure to her. Perhaps watching her mother decline has awakened fears about her own mortality. Perhaps having us here reminds her of her complicated relationship with her son, of all the ways she failed him in childhood that she can never take back. But understanding someone's pain doesn't mean accepting their abuse. Empathy has its limits, and I'm reaching mine. After everything we've survived, the homelessness, the trauma, the grief, I refuse to let this situation break us. We came here hoping for healing, for stability, for a chance to rebuild. If we can't find that here, perhaps we need to consider other options. For now, though, we stay. For Grandma, who needs care no one else is providing. For ourselves, because despite everything, having a roof overhead still feels like a miracle after so long without one. But I'm establishing boundaries. I'm documenting everything. I'm protecting my mental health and my relationship. And I'm finally speaking my truth, even if only to strangers on the internet. After years of silence, of swallowing pain, of making myself smaller to accommodate others' chaos, I'm reclaiming my voice. There's a power in naming the reality of what we've experienced, not to wallow in victimhood, but to acknowledge that these hardships have been real, significant, and not of our making. I've spent too long doubting my own perceptions, wondering if I'm overreacting, if I'm the ungrateful one, if I'm somehow responsible for the tension that permeates this property. But I'm done gaslighting myself. I'm done accepting blame for circumstances beyond my control. I'm done pretending that toxic behavior is acceptable simply because it comes from someone who shares DNA with the man I love. I don't know what tomorrow brings. I don't know if his mother will escalate or retreat. I don't know if she'll read this moment of assertiveness as a declaration of war. I don't know if we'll find a way forward as a family, or if the fractures are too deep to heal. I don't know if we'll still have a roof over our heads next week, or if we'll find ourselves back in that car, starting from scratch yet again. The uncertainty is terrifying. After everything we've endured, the prospect of homelessness looms like a specter, threatening to drag us back into that darkness. The fear sits heavy in my stomach, a constant companion that never fully leaves. Sometimes at night I find myself mentally inventorying what we would take if we had to leave suddenly. Which possessions matter most, which could fit in our car, which would have to be abandoned. Old survival habits die hard. But beneath the fear, there's something else growing, something that feels almost like strength. A quiet knowledge that whatever happens, we have already survived worse. We have already rebuilt from nothing once. We could do it again, if necessary. What I do know is this: we survived homelessness. We survived watching someone die. We survived 2 years of constant instability and fear. We survived without losing our capacity for kindness, without hardening our hearts, without becoming the bitter, angry people we had every right to become. We can survive this too. And maybe, just maybe, we might eventually do more than survive. We might find a way to truly live again, to build something beautiful from all this brokenness. To create a home, not just a physical space, but an emotional sanctuary, where healing can happen. Where the hypervigilance can finally ease. Where we can look toward future dreams, instead of just making it through the current day. I still believe that's possible. Despite everything, I still have hope. It flickers sometimes, threatened by exhaustion and setbacks, but it refuses to be extinguished completely. But tonight, I'm allowing myself to feel the anger, the hurt, the exhaustion, and yes, the resentment that I've been pushing down for weeks. Tonight, I'm not making excuses for anyone. Tonight, I'm not forcing gratitude to override my legitimate feelings. Tonight, I'm not pretending that everything is okay when it's not. Tonight, I'm honoring my own experience. Because after everything, the trauma, the grief, the daily indignities, the constant fight to maintain dignity and undignity in undignified circumstances, I've earned at least that much. We both have. Tomorrow, I'll put on my CNA uniform again. I'll hike up that hill despite my aching hip. I'll care for his grandmother with gentleness and respect. I'll clean and organize and contribute. I'll try once more to build bridges with his mother, to understand her pain without accepting her abuse. But tonight, in this moment of raw honesty, I'm acknowledging a simple truth that I've been afraid to face. We deserve better than this. And someday, somehow, we will find it.